Graham Stuart, the MP for Beverley and Holderness for the Conservatives. Graham, thank you for joining us this evening. What did you make of what Rachel Reeves said today?
Well, she has made it absolutely clear, for which we can be grateful, that she's going to break all the promises she made, not only at the manifesto when they said they wouldn't put up taxes on working people, as you say, income tax, VAT and national insurance. She's already broken that a year ago. And then, if you remember, she went around the studios, she spoke to all the business groups, and she said, in terms, I will not be back. I will not be asking for more tax from business and from ordinary people. And today, it's quite clear that she's reneging on that as well. So I think people just feel horrified and trying to make out, as she does, with her waffle bomb of and laundry list of excuses, as Kemi so well put it. It's her fault. We haven't had a global pandemic this year. We haven't had a new war break out. We've just had a Labour Chancellor getting it wrong. And the really sad thing, Peter, is you look back, and actually, we were coming out of COVID. We were coming out of the energy crisis. We got inflation. It was tough. Jeremy Hunt took some tough decisions. We got inflation back to 2%. That meant when you went to the supermarket, you weren't getting your prices going up and up. It's nearly doubled since Labour came in. Unemployment has gone up every single month since July of last year. That's what Labour does. And she's here again, and she thinks it's the Conservatives' fault that she put too much tax on business last year with her ridiculous jobs tax, which has meant that people aren't being recruited, they're not being promoted, they're not getting pay rises, and would you believe it, the economy is flatlining. Well, that's a result of Labour's choices. But instead of deciding that she's got it wrong and U-turning, which is what she should do, she's decided, no, I'll give more of the same medicine to the patient, and the recovering patient in July last year is being turned into a very sickly one indeed by a Chancellor who has absolutely no clue how to look after us.
Are global factors not at least part of this, Graham?
Well, which ones are you thinking of, Peter? I'm looking around, I'm seeing, when they talk about, high inflation under the Conservatives. Well, high inflation was everywhere. Germany had a higher peak of inflation than we did. Is Germany got a peak in inflation at the moment? No. The United States? I mean, who does? Only the UK. Why? There's only one reason, and that's Rachel Reeves' choices. And business is all there, all the business groups, from the CBI to the IOD to the Federation of Small Businesses, Make UK, all of them. They're just saying, stop, this is ridiculous.
So why isn't she listening? She says she doesn't want to do what's popular, she wants to do what's right. Your view and her view on that would be very, very different.
Yeah, well, she said, and what did she start off her clip that you showed earlier was, people put their faith in me, she said. Well, put the faith in you to do what you said. You said you were going to make growth your number one mission. Well, how does putting up tax on every single job in the country encourage growth? Who knew, Peter, that it would turn out that sticking the jobs tax on actually cut growth? It didn't increase it. If you bring in the farm tax, what does that do? If you bring in the education tax, I mean, fancy putting a tax on education. No one in Europe's ever put a tax on education, and this Labour government's done it purely out of sort of class spite. Everything they've done has failed, and they are going to go back and do more of it.
So what would the Conservatives do differently, Graham?
Well,
what would
we would get Britain working again. That's what Kemi gave. The clip you showed from her was part of a speech this morning. We've done the work, is exactly as Kemi said she wanted to do, make sure that we don't go out with cheap promises we can't deliver. She's identified, I think it's 23 billion of benefit savings. We've got to cut this spiralling cost of the benefit system. We can't have motability cars for people with minor disabilities. We've got to make sure we look after those who are severely disabled and furthest away from work. Yes, we've got to look after them, but other people need to get back into work. So that's 23 billion. We offered to work with Labour to help deliver it, but they couldn't even deliver a 5 billion saving. So they U-turned on that. They U-turned quite rightly, I'm pleased to say, on the winter fuel payment, and so suddenly, because of their weakness, they've got a big fiscal hole.
There's still a lot more.
The solution isn't to cut spending, which it ought to be, because our state is too big. We've got an ageing population, and we've got more and more people who are living off the state, and a smaller and smaller number of people paying for it.
They're still more popular than you, though, in the opinion polls. Labour at 23%, the Conservatives languishing at 16%.
Yeah, well, not too fussed about that. We're a long, long way off from a general election. The most important thing is to do what's right. And British people know that spending money you haven't got, running an enormous deficit, is not smart politics. And both Reform and Labour do not have a commitment to fiscal discipline. That's exactly what Kemi's got. And she had a really good conference. She gave a brilliant speech today. And you know, the most important thing is to tell people the truth, and it's not always what they want to hear. It may not be popular, may not immediately resonate when you speak to the opinion pollsters, but the important thing is, do you think this country has to live within its means? Yes or no? Ultimately, we do.
Let's talk about another story dominating today. I'd be very interested to hear your view on this, Graham. This is the BBC Trump scandal. Let's just remind ourselves of the clip of Donald Trump, the President of the United States, the BBC is accused of doctoring.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
The BBC accused its Panorama programme, a 19-page dossier floating around on all of this, problems about its coverage of the Middle East as well. Graham, what is your reaction to that and the fact that this appears to have been buried and not actually acted upon by some very, very senior people in the BBC, including its head of news, including its chairman?
Exactly. And the person whose job it was to blow the whistle if something like this happened wasn't getting the traction they thought it should get to recognise the seriousness of this, and took it directly to the chairman and didn't even get a reply. What is wrong? I mean, the BBC used to be the gold standard of broadcasting, not just in this country, but actually globally. And now you've got, on the eve of an election in the United States, you have the BBC utterly misrepresenting one of the candidates, Donald Trump, to make out that he said something which he did not say. That is outrageous. And when that is pointed out by someone whose job it is to look for that kind of malfeasance within the BBC to the chairman, they don't even get a reply. I mean, it's shocking, and yet somehow, you know, we've seen this kind of bias in the BBC. You might touch on the Hamas story as well. I mean, it's, you know...
Yeah, we've talked about that today, and actually your party colleague, Caroline Dinenage, the chairwoman of the Culture, Media and Sport Committee, has written to the BBC about this. What do you think should happen now? Well,
Peter, I mean, if those facts that I've repeated, which I'm led to believe are true, if that is true, and the whistleblower went to the chairman, I think repeatedly, and never got a reply, how can that person continue as chairman of the BBC? How can the Director General continue? I mean, I know and like Tim Davie, but he's the boss. You take the rap, don't you? And the BBC cannot be allowed to do that. And what could be more important than the US election and then for the BBC to misrepresent it? What could be more important than in the Middle East, where you know, there's such strong feelings, such a horrific situation, to have the BBC misrepresenting what goes on there? You know, heads need to roll, and I know you, Peter, will be like me. You don't want to see some junior thrown under the bus. The people at the top own the responsibility.
Certainly.
And I think the BBC needs a change. It needs to recognise it. And I hope Lisa Nandy, who's a straight-talking person, she's the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport. I mean, she doesn't share my politics, but I think Lisa's a straight person, and I hope she will recognise that this is an absolute scandal and something needs to be done about it.
Graham, thank you. That is Graham Stuart there, who is the MP for Beverley and Holderness, Conservative MP.